In this tutorial, we'll learn how to create a new project. You can create CityEngine projects, folders and files in several different ways. Here I'll show you a couple. The first is from the File menu. Choose New, and this launches the new wizard. Then in the CityEngine folder, choose CityEngine project and click Next. Here you can type the name of the project. So I'll call this one My First City. And then you can choose a location where the project will be created. You can either choose a default location or browse to another location on your computer. Once you've finished, close the wizard and then your project appears in the Navigator window. Another way you can create a new project is to right-click in the Navigator window and from the New option, choose CityEngine Project and you'll launch that same project wizard. A CityEngine project typically has the folders you see here, but before we discuss what's in each of them, let's import some content. So right now the folders are empty. To import some files from your file system, right-click on your project and choose to import. Under Files into Existing Project, choose File System and click Next. Browse to the directory where the files are located. For me, it's on the C drive in a folder called Essential Skills Training. And click OK. And if I click the box in the left-hand corner, it will import all the files that I need into my existing project. Then I click Finish and we let the wizard run. Now if we go over to the Navigator and I expand one of these folders, say the Assets folder, you can see we now have some content to work with. Now let's look at another way that you can import files and folders into your workspace. Let's just say a colleague of yours has an excellent CityEngine project and you want to use some of the rules or maybe some of the models in their folders. One of the best ways to exchange and share CityEngine projects is by using a zip file or an archive file. So to import the archive file, all you need to do is go to File and choose Import. And then under Project, choose Existing Projects into Workspace and click on Next. Then you can choose between a root directory or an archive file. So I'm going to check Browse on the archive file and go to where I've stored this archive file, which is on the C drive. Let's bring in the International City project we were working on earlier. I'll click Open and then click Finish. And now if we go to the Navigator window, we can see we have a whole new project in the workspace. And if I expand some of these folders, you can see we have some additional files like these CGA rules that we can use in our first CityEngine project. Now let's talk in more detail about what types of files each of these folders store. First, let's open a scene so we can see some of the files we'll be talking about. Okay, the first folder here is the Assets folder. And this folder holds assets and textures that are used by the CGA rules to generate 3D models. Assets can be in an OBJ format, for example, and textures can be in any format, like JPEGs or PNGs. The Data folder contains supplementary data. So you might have mass models stored in here or GIS data. If you have other project-related resources like artwork and sketches, you can put them into this folder as well. The Images folder stores additional imagery like viewport snapshots, and the Maps folder stores imagery used by the map layers. So the images you can see here are a DEM and an aerial image used to create a terrain layer. Next we have the Models folder. This folder stores 3D models that are either exported from CityEngine or provided by a third party. You can also store web scene files here. The Rules folder contains CGA shape grammar rule files, and you apply these rules to the shapes and street networks that we saw in the Data folder to generate 3D models. And we also have a Scenes folder, and this is where we store our CityEngine scenes. And finally, a Scripts folder. So you can put things like Python scripts in here. Once the files are imported, you use the Navigator window to manage them. So from here you can copy, rename and delete files and folders. So here I'm going to copy the ground cover folder from the assets folder in the International City project and add it to the My First City project. And here we can see the ground cover folder added here under the assets. You can rename or delete any scene or file from right-clicking, and you can see on the context menu we have the option to rename or delete. And if you right-click on any folder, you can see the same context menu and the option to delete there. If you want to look for a specific file, you can hit Control, Shift and R, and then just type the name of the file you're looking for. So here I type in plant and I can see a CGA rule and a CSV file that comes up. For performance reasons, CityEngine keeps an internal copy of the workspace. If you modify files outside of CityEngine, for example, you edit a JPEG in Photoshop or you rename a file in your system's file explorer, you have to refresh the folder in CityEngine to see the updated file. To do this, choose File, Refresh Workspace, or simply hit the F5 key. You can edit CGA and scene files inside of CityEngine, but other than these files, CityEngine doesn't provide asset and image editing capabilities. So to edit files with your favorite tools, for example, to edit a JPEG with Photoshop, you need to assign your preferred application to whatever file type you'll be working with. So to do this, go to the file you'd like to edit. So in this case, we're going to be working with JPEGs, and then right-click, and from the context menu, choose Open With, and then choose Other. From the Editor selection window, choose External Programs, and then browse to the program that you want to actually edit the JPEG with. All the folders and data we've seen so far are contained in what we call a workspace. The workspace organizes all of the resources related to a CityEngine project. So if I right-click on this folder, I can see the location of the workspace folder on my file system. When you're working in CityEngine, you can only have one workspace open at a time. So if you need to access a project in another workspace folder, you'll need to switch workspaces. So to do this, select File, Switch Workspace, and choose Other. If you've switched workspaces before, the previous options will be available here in the Workspace wizard. If you want to navigate to a new workspace, click the Browse button, and on your file system, navigate to the new workspace you want to add. So for example here, if I clicked on this CE workspace and choose OK, CityEngine will actually shut down and restart again with this new workspace available in the Navigator window. So I'm just going to click Cancel here. The last thing I want to share with you is how you can share a project with a colleague or a client. So here you can see I have lots of good information and lots of good data. I have some rules over here that might be valuable to a colleague. So if I want to share it, I can go up here to the File menu and choose Export. I can either export the project as an archived file. If I want to do that, I can choose General and then Archive, or I can write it as folders and files to the file system. If I want to do this, I can choose General and then File. Then I just choose Next, and here we have the option to either choose all of the folders in the project, or I could just select a couple of these folders to share. So I'm going to choose to export the whole project. Then I just navigate to the location on my computer where I want to put this. So I choose the folder and click OK, and then click Finish. And before all the files are extracted into the folder, I'm prompted to save any changes I've made. So I just click Yes, and then CityEngine packages up all of the files into the zipped folder. So once the process is complete, I can come to the folder where I exported the My First City project, and here I can just right-click and send this to a compressed folder. So I'm zipping the content, and then I can email it to my colleague. Okay, before we move on, I'm going to show you one more trick from the view settings that can improve the visualization of this scene. Here at the top, you can see the scene light. When I turn that on, you can see now more clearly the streets are rendered and the building models are really coming to life. So now we've covered the basics of project management and creation. In the next video, we'll show you how to effectively make use of CityEngine windows and interface controls.